Hello everybody, my name is Garrett and this is Vanellope. Vanellope is a van that was made in 1992, 10 years before I was born, and I currently live in her. So let's talk about that. I live in a van, honestly, for a few different reasons. One is rent prices, which are absolutely insane, pretty much no matter where you go in BC. So that's one reason. Another reason is that I've wanted to for a very long time. Since I was a kid, I always pictured myself exploring lots of different places, and I find I get a little antsy after being in one place for too long. I grew up on the island, so growing up, if I ever wanted to visit anywhere that wasn't on the island, I had to pay money to go on the ferry and then have a car and make sure I needed to spend money at a hotel or anything like that. So when I'm stuck in one place for too long, I tend to get a little antsy, so I decided to see what van life would be like. So this is where I hang up all of my jackets, sweaters, toques, whistles, anything like that, buffs for tree planting and whatnot. It's definitely it's nice to have the coat hanger here. It saves me a lot of space from inside the actual van, and you know, it makes the wall feel comfy when the door's closed. So next here we have my cooler, which can connect to my car charger, and pretty much I just keep all my snacks in here. Not meat or anything like that where I have to keep it refrigerated 24/7, just more general snacks that need to be kept cool sometimes. If I do have some kind of lunch meat in there that I want to take to a picnic to make sandwiches, then I'll have it plugged in for the whole drive, but I only have one cigarette lighter and I have a lot of things that need to be charged on the in the cigarette lighter. So things like my power bank, things like I have a laptop charger adapter for my laptop, and the cooler, so a few different things that need to plug in there. So I just kind of swap out for whatever needs the charging at the time. It's been incredible. I mean, I think there's pros and cons to everything you do in life. And I think that when you see those van lifers on Instagram who, I think that they tend to glamorize it a little bit. I think there are a lot more negatives than people see just from short videos and whatnot. So that's definitely one thing to be aware of, because when you do it, it's not going to be just a cakewalk. You know, I've had scary experiences, I've had gross experiences, just things that you aren't prepared for when you're going to live in a van, because it's things not a lot of people talk about. So I think that I think it's great to have content creation in a sense where you show the good and the bad. So I definitely support channels and interviewers like this where they ask about the whole of it, and not just, oh, how amazing is it living in a van. No, there's definitely parts where it's like, you know, sometimes I don't shower for a week, or sometimes I don't get you know, sometimes most of the bathrooms I use are gas station bathrooms because I don't have a portable toilet or anything like that. So there's definitely goods and bads, but honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything right now where I am in the world. I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to save up the money and do this. So yeah. And then how I stay warm and dry is Vanellope's heart here is what I call it. It is a little wood stove that is made out of an old propane canister. And I pretty much just use some kindling, use some compressed logs and some fire starters, and we have it smoking in no time. It has a pipe that goes in between the two center seats and goes right out of a chimney at the top of the van up there, as you can see. So that's how everything stays warm and dry if I ever get soaked or anything like that. A few hours with the fire on, and all my clothes are completely dry, which is great, especially if I happen to have a leak in the ceiling. There's been times where my insulation gets very wet because of some leaks or some cracks in the roof or something like that. So it's nice to have that there to dry everything out and make everything warm and cozy again. For the van itself, I believe it was about $7,500, and me and my ex had split that amount. And then we lived in it together for a while before we split up, and I ended up getting the van in the split up, and I saved up a few $1,000s for my first few months because I wasn't sure. I knew I can save money, but I also know that I've never lived in a van before, so I wasn't sure what the costs would be and what budgeting would look like for something I've never done before. And then the tax return came in, which gave me a little bit extra money to keep me moving forward until I go tree planting in a few days, which is where I will make the majority of my money for hopefully living in the van for at least the beginning of 2025. So the van, when I got it, had the wood stove in it, and it had these shelves and then some of the bed frame. Everything else I've kind of added. I mean, the roof and the walls and the floor were here as well, obviously. But I've added the rugs. I've screwed in some things to keep things on the shelf, like this bar here. I've added lots of hooks and danglies to keep all my stuff. This is the basket where I keep all of my fire material, as well as some water. I've added this big water jug here, which is where I get all my water from. I fill it up at sinks, at local rest stops and places like that where I can. So for storage, lots of the door pockets have little notebooks in them and whatnot. So mainly I use, here, let me get a better angle. Mainly I use these shelves here. So I have 6 shelves and then a very thin underlayer, which is where I keep everything, and it's all organized. So this is where my socks and underwear go. This is where my board games and my portable charging device goes. I also have this over here, which is where I have a little portable DVD player. So I try to get any DVDs I can find to use as entertainment if I feel like watching a movie, because, you know, when you're out in the woods, it's hard to get Netflix. And then here is for kind of emergency preparedness, first aid kit and lots of, you know, a dry bag and bungee cords and things like that. Next is my outdoor bag. So you'll find things like flashlights and bug spray and some tape and goggles and things like that. And then this last is just where I keep all my bathroom stuff. And then under here, I have a little toolbox that I use for any little repairs that I need to do on Vanellope. And then the rest of it's pretty much just extra. So all the tree planting I've done so far, because I've only had the van for a few months, has been using tents and things like that. So normally I pack a really big backpack and I fly out to wherever I'm needed to tree plant, and then I set up and camp there. So I think it is very conducive to van life tree planting, because first of all, you don't need to stay in a tent, which is nice. You get to stay in something a little bit warmer, a little more safer, you know, if you're scared of bears or anything like that. And I think also it's just kind of that nomadic lifestyle. People who tree plant are very passionate. People who tree plant, I've found in my tree planting that people who tree plant are very creative, very appreciative of nature and opportunities and things like that. And I really think a lot of those aspects align with me personally and with van life in general. A lot of the people I meet that also live in van life kind of share those same views of nature and the world and things like that. So I think it really is, yeah. Yeah, so for cooking, I actually don't have a ton of options for cooking. Right now, what I have is I have this little pot that I can put water in, or any kind of liquid I want to warm up, and I put the lid on top, and then I just place it. I place it on top of the fireplace there, and so it kind of warms up as the fire roars. Other than that, I have some cast iron in the back, which I take out if I'm near any outdoor fireplaces or anything. It's a little too thick to get warm enough from the wood stove I have here, but if there's ever a campfire, or if I'm ever staying in somebody's driveway or anything like that, I can use the cast iron to cook up whatever food I have. So some of the benefits with van life is obviously freedom is kind of what everybody wants it for. It's just the idea that as long as you find a place to park and some food to eat, you can pretty much be anywhere you want to. Another thing, honestly, I've found it's helped my mental health a lot. I'm a very extroverted person, and I was always kind of afraid of being alone for a long time. I didn't even come into van life alone. You know, I came in with my ex, and so I expected to stay with them, and that didn't happen. So now it's given me a chance to live alone in my own kind of space that I can curate to my own wants and needs. It also gives me a lot of time off of screens and the internet and my phone, which I find has been a very positive experience for me. I've been doing a lot more writing, a lot more journaling, a lot more drawing, and I think honestly it suits where I am in life right now, both mentally and physically. So I'm very thankful to have this opportunity. So my bed currently consists of a few layers. Now, when I got the van, it had a big foam mat underneath of it. As you'll see right now, I have an air mattress. So it started with a big foam mat, and then I realized about a month in that it had molded completely with black mold, which is something I didn't realize you really had to keep an eye on when you're doing van life because of the humidity in here and because of how, the cold and the warm, it always causes condensation. So since then, I have kind of made a slatted base where I've put different pieces of wood, and I've made sure to keep air in between so that the bottom of whatever mattress I have on here doesn't get all moldy, because the problem was the foam mat was lying on a sheet of plywood with no air holes, so it didn't have the circulation, the ventilation. So now I have an air mattress. This one needs to be replaced because it has a hole in it. And then on top of the air mattress, I have a sleeping bag laid open, which I lay on top of. And then I have a Coleman sleeping bag on top of me, which I found at a thrift store. And then this big elephant blanket that you'll probably see hung up at your grandma's place at some time. And those are kind of the few layers I have right now. Now, as the summer comes, obviously, I'll get rid of a few of them, and it'll probably get really hot in here, but I'll take that as it comes. Challenges, honestly, there are a few. Bathrooms, I have to use public bathrooms, which isn't always the nicest, but honestly isn't as bad as people say it is. If you have to use them regularly, there's nothing you can do about it. Another one is meals. A lot of the meals I make are just, like some bagged salads or sandwiches or bunwiches I make, or crackers or snacks. A lot of snacks, because those are things you don't necessarily need to cook, especially when you don't have the means to cook them. I don't have a 4-burner in here or anything, so that would definitely be nice. Personal hygiene, of course. If you like dipping in the ocean and lakes and rivers, you can keep it up, which I don't mind personally myself, but I know some van lifers who feel like they need to have a proper shower every 3 days, but I know some who are okay with not having one every 3 weeks. So it kind of just depends on where you at with your own personal needs and wants. So finding places to park is definitely a bit of a challenge. There's been nights where I've gone to a town that I thought there would be many places to park, and I've been driving until about 3 a.m. because there are no overnight parking signs everywhere, and it's in the middle of, it's snowing everywhere else, and I can't get up this one hill, and I'm driving through this town where all these people are looking at me because I look sketchy because I'm driving around at 1 a.m. and I'm trying to find a place to park. So it definitely and then sometimes you do find a place to park and you wake up at 4 a.m. with a knock on your door saying you can't park there, and you're in your underwear and you're trying to figure out how to put clothes on and talk to the police officer, and it's obviously at the time it's pretty stressful, and finding places to park, thankfully on Vancouver Island, has been relatively easy. There's lots of really, really nice places. I mean, I found some completely free oceanside places to park where I can look out at the ocean and nobody bothers me. But looking back on it, I'd say all experiences are good. All experiences are good rather than bad, just because it's just that bad days make good stories, and good stories make good memories, and things like that. So I look back and laugh at all of the negative things I've had to encounter so far in van life. So for lighting, I have a few different things. I have this little Coleman lantern here, which is a nice warm light. I'm not a big fan of the bright white LED lights, but unfortunately they're also kind of the best and easiest to use. I found this at a thrift store the other day, another Coleman one. It's a lot brighter in the dark, and so I keep that hanging there. And then I have one more lantern just over in this corner, which I also keep my carbon monoxide detector on top of. Now that's something really important to have, whether you have a wood stove in your van or not, because for example, I had an exhaust leak that I didn't know about, and the carbon monoxide detector let me know before I passed out in the van, which was very nice. And as well, it also tells me if I've kept the fire door open for a little too long, and it needs to be aired out in here. So next to that, you'll see I have my dirty laundry bag. It's attached to this stick, which is kind of like a privacy curtain stick. So when I don't want to see the front of my van and I don't want people looking in, I pull this tapestry to the side and this tapestry here, and it kind of gives me a little bit more privacy, which is definitely nice. As well, I also have window covers, some reflective window covers cut to the shape of pretty much all my windows in here. So I put those up if it's ever really cold or really warm and I need a little bit of a break from people watching me through the windows and things like that. So this little painting I keep across from my bed, it looks like it was done by a 3-year-old, but actually it was done by a raven. I got the chance up on northern Vancouver Island to do a falconry course where I learned how to train and teach and feed and just work with different kinds of raptors and birds of prey. And at the end, we met this amazing bird named Kyle. He was a one-winged raven, and he painted paintings for all of us, which was very sweet. And so I love having that hanging up in here. I'm very lucky. I grew up with very supportive parents. Pretty much their view on my life is as long as I'm happy, they're happy for me, and I'm so thankful for that because God knows a majority of people do not have parents that will react that same way. I grew up, my closest friends, their parents were not very supportive of them doing things that they love. So my parents supported me with this, not financially, but have just been there for me. I've been able to use their driveway a few times when I had nowhere to go and I needed to come back to Victoria, which is where I am. My friends think it's very cool. I think it's a very, I think my generation is kind of very in tune with nature, or at least a lot of the people that I tend to hang around are very creative, very in tune with nature and stuff like that, you know, not really working office jobs and things like that. So they think it's really cool. Of course, they just see the positive parts of it. But like I said before, the negative parts are just as worth it. So I'm thankful that I have a really big network of people who support me in my life and my choices. Perfect. So this is the back of Vanellope. So this is where I keep things that I don't use as often. For example, this big cutting board I have for when I'm at campfires and things like that, or when I'm preparing meals. I have all of my winter clothes in here and my very hot summer clothes, as well as some backpacks. So I keep those in the back just because I don't need them until, you know, probably around November, December, whenever that comes. As we were talking about my cooking ware, I have my little cast iron set here, which I keep just in case I need to cook some food. And then this is also where I keep things like my axle stands in case I get a little bit of a flat tire and I need to change that. So advice I would give to somebody who's thinking about van life is, first of all, you know, that classic, you only live once, YOLO. Second of all, really do research on mold, because that has screwed me over once or twice now. Make sure there's no leaks in the van. Make sure that whatever you're sleeping on is has air flowing in it. Make sure there's not a lot of, not too much condensation. Make sure, you know, always be bear safe too. Make sure you're not keeping some raw meats in the car or somewhere that would be easily smelled by any kind of animals. I have had some wild animal encounters which have been kind of scary, but thankfully I've always gotten out of them unharmed. Yeah, I'd say just be careful. I would suggest it to anybody, and I'm so thankful that I got the opportunity. But if I could go back, not that I regret it, but I would do more research on mold, on how to stay warm when it's cold, how to stay cool when it's warm, just very vital things to life. Because one thing about mold that people actually you don't really think about is it can make you really sick. I was living in my van with mold in it for a month, and for the entire month I just felt like zero energy, and it was terrible. And thankfully afterwards, it took about another month to kind of come back into healthiness. So it is something that can affect you for long-term or short-term. So it's definitely something to look into. As much as a personal philosophy is kind of, everybody has their own and it's kind of hard to think of, and everything's been said before. I think it's just, I don't know, I could think of 1,000 different phrases. One is that when you're 80 years old and dying in your bed and you're looking at old photos of yourself, will you be worrying about how big your waistline is? Or will you be worrying about how your teeth looked that day or how your hair looked? Things like that. I also try not to have regrets, because I think it's just, the past isn't something you can change. and the future isn't something you control, which means the only thing that you have any kind of control of is the present, which I think is amazing and beautiful in a way, because as humans, especially in the age of the internet and things like that, it's very hard to stay in one place, in one mindset, in one time. It's hard to be wherever you are. Your mind is always somewhere else, especially if you have things like ADHD or depression and things like that, which really get into your mind and make you think about things that you shouldn't even be worrying about at this instant. So I'd say that kind of sums up what I feel. Yeah, sure. I have an Instagram called Vanellope.Ventures. That's vanellope.ventures. It's just where I kind of keep up to date. I don't make a ton of videos or anything, but I just post about what I'm doing every few weeks or so, just what I've encountered. I'm an avid bird watcher, so I post a lot about the birds I see, because there are so many neat ones here on the coast, and pretty much anywhere you go, people don't really realize. But yeah, so if you guys did want to follow me, that's where you could, but no pressure to.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please share it with a friend. Also, if you want to watch more alternative dwellings, we got a playlist popping up right here, and we release new episodes every single Sunday, so consider subscribing.